In the mid-2000s, anime-style games really exploded in popularity, especially on Steam. A bunch of games came out, like PC ports of various JRPGs, visual novels, puzzle games, and many other kinds of genres. Even though I've played several, there's been some noticeable ones I haven't gotten around to. One of those games is Rabi-Ribi. During Christmas time, I saw the game on sale, so I bought it. The game has been mentioned countless times in the YouTube comments, and the reviews on Steam are very positive, so my expectations were reasonably high. Turns out I really like Rabi-Ribi, and I'm going to share my experience with the game so far. It's made by a company called Cree Spirit out of Taiwan. It combines non-linear side-scrolling gameplay, bullet hell boss fights, pixel art, and a cute anime art style. The story is also kind of silly, which I think makes it fun. I'm not going to spoil anything when it comes to the story, so I'll just give you a basic rundown. The story follows Erina, a bunny girl who used to be a real rabbit. For some reason, she turned human one day and sets out to find her master. She looks a bit like Chino from Is the Order a Rabbit? That's probably intentional given the DLC name. Along the way, you'll encounter Ribbon, a fairy who joins forces with Erina and essentially becomes her sidekick, as well as a very useful weapon. Characters aren't exactly super unique. There's a lot of, like stereotypical characters and humor, but I like it. Rather than being lazy writing, it feels more like an intentional thing, which is what makes it funny and amusing. It's a bit like Neptunia games, but executed in a different way. Let's talk about gameplay. It's a 2D side-scrolling platformer with quick and responsive controls. It's fast-paced and slick to play. If you're worried about any possible clunkiness, don't worry. You won't find any clunk here. It's not a linear game, so you can go to different areas if you want. The game opens up as you play, so at first many areas aren't accessible right away, because you need specific abilities to get to them. Some of them are the carrot grenade thing, the hammer, and the slide move, which allows you to pass through smaller gaps. The ones I mentioned are obtained fairly early on, probably within the first hour or two. Also early on, you'll meet Ribbon, like I mentioned, who has the ability to shoot projectiles. There's different ones you can choose from. This ability is really vital in all kinds of situations. Ribbon and your hammer will be the most used attack methods, and you learn various different techniques as you go as well with the hammer. There's a fast travel system which allows you to go to places you've already been to. Just look for the silver orbs. You can only fast travel to and from these. Saving is done at the floating, rotating cubes. Doing so also replenishes your health, which is a nice bonus. The game also autosaves every now and then, maybe when you're entering a building or discovering a fast travel spot or something like that. Usually there's multiple things you can do at once, which you can see on the map. Since Rabi-Ribi is non-linear, it's possible to go to areas that aren't related to your objective. There are a lot of items to collect, including ones that improve Erina's stats, so it's a good idea to look around and see what you can find. Once you reach the target area, you engage in a boss fight. Boss fights are very bullet hellish. Each boss has many different kinds of attacks and patterns. I'm not that great at bullet hell games, so I have the game set to novice difficulty. It's not quite easy modo, but I still have problems with boss fights. I usually manage after several tries. The nice thing is that you can try again really easily because the game puts you just before the area that triggers the fight, and any items that you've consumed will be back in your inventory. Since there's different kinds of projectiles, it also pays to play around with the different ones. Not just during boss fights, but also the platforming bits. The frickin' laser beam is pretty handy against a lot of enemies. Also, don't forget to charge your shots. Each projectile has a different charged shot. For example, the one which normally sprays these little squares becomes green particles that scatter and home in on enemies. That's quite useful against a lot of the erratic flying enemies, as well as bosses who sometimes float for an extended period of time. It's a good way to get in some damage while you're basically just dodging stuff. It's a good idea to prepare yourself by upgrading stats at the store, as well as buying items to replenish health and so on. I like to not prepare at all because it's kind of exciting given the relatively low difficulty level I'm playing at. If things are too hard or perhaps too easy, you can always go to this weirdo to change the difficulty setting. The look of this game is worth talking about. The 16-bit style isn't anything unusual. I find it interesting how certain things like character portraits are high resolution. Mixing pixel art and high-res elements can look a bit wonky in some occasions, but I think it works well here. but I do notice a few things like the chibi icons and overlays, which in my opinion can clash with the 16-bit style gameplay graphics. Some of the Shantae games did this, which I didn't like, but I don't think it's as bad here. Stuff like that doesn't influence my enjoyment of the game, but it's something that I always notice, so why not mention it? The art style is something I'm quite a fan of. I like the cutesy character designs and the chibi icons and illustrations spread around the menus and overlays. I think they're quite amusing to look at. Despite that, the colors aren't super saturated, they're more muted and pastel-like, which I think is a good thing. Because normally you'd think it'd be like, overblown with saturation or something. The enemies are quite amusing too, since everything looks cute and adorable. Girl with bunny ears? Hit him with a hammer. Dog? Hit him with a hammer. Cat? Yeah, you get it. The character designs skirt the edge of cute and adorable and slightly lewd. There's the usual anime-style fanservice and skimpy outfits. Rabi-Ribi also features a lot of DFC, or Potenko characters, or whatever sort of terminology you prefer, so that's good. Something I get a kick out of is the choice of costume designs. It's like the developers are purposely highlighting how strange or outrageous outfits can get in some animes. With Erina, for example, she's only wearing one sock, just one. Strange bit of asymmetry there. And Sissany, or however you pronounce her name, apparently has no need for pants. I can imagine a meeting where the devs were joking around and someone just, stood up and said, "Hey, how about we just don't give this character any pants?" And everyone thought that was hilarious. So that's what they did. The gameplay looks smooth and fluid. The effects for special moves and abilities is also something that adds some visual interest. Some attacks have a lot of flashing lights, so if that's something that affects you, be warned. I like that in boss fights there are moments when the camera zooms in, which makes things a bit more exciting. A lot of characters have over-exaggerated idle animations. That's something I've always enjoyed. Back in the day, they just wanted to show off that certain things were animated because, that was fancy. But I'm glad that a lot of games still retain that these days, even just for, ironic purposes. The music is really awesome. There's a good mix of different and distinctive songs. There's different tracks for different locations, and boss fights feel energetic and exciting. I noticed there was one song in the Bunny Maniac headquarters, which sounds like a Kraftwerk song. In fact, it sounds like Die Menschmaschine, except the song in the game has an altered melody and the bassline synth is bassier, which fills out the low end a bit more and gives the song a bit more of a thumping pulse. I thought that was quite interesting and it sounds great. At other times, there's some songs that totally sound like visual novel stock music. I don't see that as a bad thing, it's actually kind of charming. I recommend picking up the soundtrack. It comes with lossless files, so if you want to flack it up, you can play it through your tube amp. I want to bring up controls now. I actually prefer to play platformers on equipment with nice switches, so Rabi-Ribi is a good candidate for an arcade stick, I think. But I ended up playing it on a keyboard, and there's one thing that annoys me. Confirm is bound to jump. It's annoying that I can't use enter. I have jump bound to the spacebar, so at least it's not completely awful. But it would have been nice to have those things separated. Same thing with the shoot and cancel buttons. So that's been my experience with Rabi-Ribi. It's a great playing game with fun humor, lots of hidden things, a cute art style, and it's a good challenge for probably everyone since there's a wide range of difficulty levels. Let me know in the comments what you think of the game, whether you've played it yourself or are thinking of giving it a go. It seems to be on sale on a semi-regular basis, so keep an eye out for Steam sales. Additionally, the game is available on PS4, Vita, and Switch, so there's a lot of ways to play. Thank you very much to everyone who supports the channel. You'll see some names in front of you now. If you want to get your name on here, or maybe watch videos before they come out, or even get behind-the-scenes exclusive updates, check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/ysn. All the links to all the things are in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.